Hello everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Embarrassing Stories. First up for you today we have TIFU by Putting My Cat's Food in the Closet by Orion's Belt, 87. I had reached out to Orion's Suspenders, but they've yet to get back to me. I, 21 and female, just moved in with my boyfriend, 21, male, and our other friend, 21, female, about 5 days ago. Sean and Abby. Sean is the boyfriend, Abby's the friend. We live in western New York, near Buffalo. I have a cat, and the master bedroom that I'm staying in has a large closet that our landlord said can be used for extra storage. We didn't have anything that we needed to store for now, so I decided to make it the cat's room while we unpack. I didn't want her exploring the living room and general downstairs area just yet due to us unpacking all of our stuff. I didn't want her to possibly get into something that could harm her, or make biscuits on anyone's suitcases. So for now, she has been banished to my bedroom. Oh. I feel bad, but it's temporary. Abby loves her as well, and is happy to let her explore her room if she gets too bored. I try to make it as smooth of a transition as possible because she gets nervous in new environments. She's only 2, and she's a tiger tabby, so she's very curious and very chatty. I put all her toys, her food dish, her litter box, and her cardboard scratching mat in the closet. I even sprinkle some catnip on the floor to get her more used to the smell of the place. Luckily, she likes lounging on my bed and my big comfy blankets. As I am a college student who hasn't started work yet, my mom, who also has a cat, was gracious enough to give me a month's supply of dry cat food to get us through the first bit of classes, until my first paycheck comes in and I can get more. I put it in a plastic Ziploc bag in that closet as well for easy access. I had an event to go to yesterday at 7 p.m. and my cat eats every day at 8, so I asked Sean to feed her after I left. He of course said absolutely and was happy to help me. He was coming to the event quick at 8 as well, and then to our other mutual friend's house, so he said he'd feed her around 7:45 before he left. I had to go early to set up. I left for my event confident that my kitty would be happy and healthy. Sean called me around 7:52 to tell me that he went into my room to feed the lovely princess, and then said not to panic. I naturally started panicking. He proceeded to tell me that he and Abby had found hundreds of little tiny brown ants in the closet, all over the floor, on the small part of the wall near the ground where it's boarded, and of course they were attracted to her food bag. I thought I had sealed it up as tight as possible, and that it wouldn't be a big deal, but I was wrong. I have contamination OCD, so I started freaking out. This is genuinely one of my worst fears. He told me that he and Abby had it handled. They cleaned everything up, swept and mopped my entire room, and taped up the sides of the wall where they suspected the ants were coming from. They moved her litter box and food dish out from the closet and kept the door shut. A few hours later, Abby informed him that the tape wasn't stopping them and they just kept coming. She removed the food bag and found a hole in the plastic, and we aren't really sure if it was there before or it was caused by the ants. Either way, the food is now unusable, as is her scratching post. Her toys, luckily, were salvageable. When I got home, Abby was waiting for me to help calm me down and tell me everything she saw rationally. They're only in that closet and haven't migrated anywhere else in my room. They cleaned everything and said we'd talk to our landlord about an exterminator in the morning. We ended up not going with an exterminator because those are super expensive, but our landlord agreed to reimburse us for any ant traps and sprays we buy. She also told me not to worry about the cat either because she spends lots of time with her, so she wasn't lonely. The cat wasn't eating any of the ants, which I was also worried about, but apparently she did like to swat at them and sit on them. I sobbed for hours. I refused to go into my room. When Sean finally came home an hour after I did from his brutal loss at Magic the Gathering, Sorry, buddy. He came carrying a can of Raid, given to him by a friend. It was even orange-scented. I didn't know they made orange-scented Raid. My favorite. Abby's mom seems to think they're thief ants. Aren't all ants thieves? Am I profiling by saying all ants are thieves? We'll get a knock at the door from an especially large ant one day saying, "Hey, I heard what you've been saying about us." But these ones seem much smaller than the photos I've seen on thief ants. Abby caught some in tape to take downstairs and show me. They're tiny and brown with a reddish tint. It doesn't look like they have any sort of stinger, luckily, or my poor cat's butt would be stung to hell and back. So, we've allowed the cat to wander downstairs now. We decided as a household that we've unpacked enough that she's free to explore. Sean sprayed the Raid in the closet and let me sleep in his room for the night. He ended up sleeping downstairs later in the night to keep the cat company. It is now 6:30 a.m. the next morning. I'm obsessively Googling the most effective ways to keep the ants away and trying to figure out exactly what kind they are. I'm going to go in that closet and spray the Raid a second time and then go to the store and get some ant traps, as well as airtight food containers for the foreseeable future. Her food and litter box have been temporarily rehoused in the kitchen. She's gotten lots of scritches and lots of love for being such a brave girl, unlike her mom. If you've made it this far, thanks for listening to my jumbled mess of horrified thoughts. I love bugs, but I cannot stand when there's a swarm. I hate ants now. Plus, I started my period right before all this happened. Thank God for my wonderful boyfriend and amazing roommate. And the second story today is TIFU by making my office enact martial law due to my cooking by Tresha Blanca. 8 years ago, when I was a 20-year-old intern in the office I now work in full-time, I made a horrible mistake. I'd been there for maybe a month and I was loving it, but outside work, I had zero skills. I hadn't learned how to cook anything, and I just improv my way through food. So whenever I made soup, I just dump a crapload of frozen vegetables into a giant mug of broth and microwave it. My department shares a floor with HR, and it's basically a long hallway of office doors on each side with a tiny kitchenette in the middle. It's very lumen, except for how the office doors are noticeably weirdly small for their frames. Ben Stiller would never. It was a Saturday, and I went in to do some work, so I was the only person on the floor. I packed a soup for lunch, which I made by dumping a whole bag of frozen peas into one of my comedically large ceramic soup mugs and adding some broth. At around noon, I chucked it in the kitchenette microwave, and somehow, within a few minutes, the broth got to borderline boiling. And for some reason, when I reached to get it, I grabbed my soup not by the handle, but by the mug itself. My hand had that delay between registering intense pain and reacting to it. Ow. And in that time, I had taken the soup out of the microwave, swung, turned, and was holding it over the floor for the hallway. I screamed. I dropped the mug. Whatever, right? It's just a mug. I could clean it up. Imagine. What a world that would be. Instead, when the mug hit the floor, it shattered, and good God, the peas. I know there couldn't have been hundreds of them, but it genuinely looked like it. It was like a grenade of peas that exploded into 20 power washers, blasting peas in every direction. I hereby dub thee Peacemaker. I guess the heat also hardened them or something, because they were like little rubber bullets bouncing every direction insanely far down both sides of the hallway, with more buoyancy than I thought anything edible could have. The peas went absolutely everywhere. And remember those awkward two small doors? Yeah, it turns out there's a giant 2-inch gap between the bottom of them and the floor, which is more than enough space for 50 peas to jettison themselves under every single door frame and rocket to the back of each office. Way beyond where I could reach them, even with a huge stick, which I also didn't have. Your office doesn't have a pea stick? Most unusual. I asked myself so many times over the years, in what world were you going to eat all those peas? Was it 2 entire bags of frozen peas in there? All I could do was force myself to stop crying, mop up the broth in the hallway, and retrieve the maybe 5 out of 5,000 peas that hadn't gone under one of the 10+ locked office doors for basically anyone in HR. I scrubbed the floors, collected every tiny sliver of the mug corpse in a bag, and threw it out in a public dumpster 30 minutes away. Good idea, disposing of the evidence far away from the scene of the crime. That's smart. Then I went home and thought to myself, maybe they won't notice. Thus began the pea incident, our department's ground zero, the biggest thing that's ever happened in the office to this day. All anyone talked about for weeks were their theories on who broke in on the weekend and put such an insane amount of peas in everyone in HR's offices, and how they did it. I vehemently agreed with everyone who suspected my least favorite office alcoholic. Oh, come on now. They've got bigger problems. They called a series of executive meetings about a scarcity issue and oversight in staff safety. There were so many presentations. I remember an exec asking, "What if it isn't peas next time? What if it's anthrax? Or Brussels sprouts?" I said in meeting after meeting about it, taking the worst notes I've ever taken because my hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. Everyone had to start locking their office doors whenever they left. I didn't stop it before, even if they were just going to the bathroom to pee, or popping out for a second. They put additional scan locks on all the doors to the entire floor, and everyone still needs a special key fob to get the elevator open on the right floor. I developed stomach ulcers from the stress and barely slept for months. I was so terrified that someone would find out it was me. I've been scared for almost a decade, as my internship became a freelance position, then several contract positions, then a part-time permanent role, then, finally, full-time permanent. And the stakes just kept getting higher. Peas and steak. I have a chronic illness, and my meds had hit more than $600 a month over the pandemic. But thankfully, due to that very pandemic and super high turnover rates, slowly over the last 8 years, everyone who was there for the pea thing has left, and the thing that desperately needed to be forgotten was lost. Pea history has become pea legend. Pea legend became pea myth. And for 2,500 years the ring passed out of all knowledge, until yesterday, because bloody Carol is back covering a mat leave. And Carol asked me yesterday if I remember the peas. I said, no, I must have blocked the memory out because I'm highly allergic to peas. Not telling Porky Pies. Come now. She says she still wonders who did it. She's here for another 8 months at least, and I cannot let her catch me. Screw you, Carol, and screw peas. I bloody hate peas. Anyway, third story today. TIFU by booking a flight to the wrong city by Bob Regado. I was supposed to fly to Miami, Florida earlier this week from DC for a conference. The trip was organized at the very last minute after my manager found out about a special talk that he thought I should attend. That was nice of him. I've never been to Florida before. I don't particularly like this state. My company uses SAP to handle hotel reservations and book flights. A hotel close to the Miami airport was recommended, which I promptly booked. I also booked a flight from DC to Florida. A day before the trip, my manager sits me down to tell me the rules related to travel. Per diem, whether alcohol is allowed with meals, and under no circumstance should I book a car rental. Uber or take public transportation if I should have the need to get about the city. Okay, whatever. The day of the trip, I show up an hour and a half early to the departure gate at Dallas. I don't like being late to board my flight, and I also like to take the opportunity to get some reading done at the gate. I sit in front of the screen showing all the departures from the gate throughout the day, but I don't see a flight to Miami. I'm an hour and a half early. Maybe they will refresh the screen soon. I sit down with my book and read for about half an hour. I check the screen again. I notice a flight to Orlando, Florida, at about the same time as my flight. But still no flight to Miami. Perhaps they'll refresh it soon. Still not realizing my screw-up, but a bit concerned, I go back to reading. Half an hour later, there's still no change to the screen. I start panicking. I go up to the desk where the airline staff are supposed to check your boarding passes. I ask the lady about the flight to Miami in half an hour. She says there's no flight to Miami and to check my boarding pass. WTF, am I at the wrong gate? I check my boarding pass. It says DC to Orlando, Florida. I'm in full panic mode now and mentally running through my options. Conference is tomorrow. Perhaps I can schedule a red-eye on my own dime without telling my boss and stay at the same hotel that I booked, or book a car rental and drive from Orlando to Miami overnight. I settle for the latter option. Throughout my flight from DC to Orlando, I pray that a car rental will be available. I land at 11 p.m. in Orlando and rush to the rental car spot, manage to book a rental, and make the 3-hour drive between the cities and reach the hotel at 3 a.m. And the fourth story today is TIFU by forgetting how old my crush at work actually is, by Venom Blush. So I, female 28, started a new job a few months ago, and quickly hit it off with this guy, Jake. He's funny, super smart, laid back in that unbothered but capable way, and dangerously good looking. Like, how dare he? He works in a different department, so we only interact here and there. But there's been undeniable friendly chemistry. Anyway, we started chatting more regularly, sharing Spotify playlists, joking around in work chats, bonding over our mutual hatred for open office plans and lukewarm microwave lunches. I caught myself looking forward to his messages a little too much. I won't lie, I started to develop a bit of a crush. Fast forward to yesterday. We were in the break room talking about movies. I mentioned how The Matrix blew my mind when I was a kid. Jake goes, "Wait, when did that come out again?" 1999. Oh damn, I wasn't even born yet. I froze. I blinked. I did the mental math like I was trying to defuse a bomb. Wait. How old are you? I just turned 19 last month. I'm 28. I was reading Twilight when he was learning to read. I was getting my learner's permit when he was still trying to ride a bike. I was paying off student loans when he was finishing high school. I think I blacked out for a second because he asked me if I was okay, and I just kind of nodded and mumbled something about sudden back pain, because you're old. He still smiled at me like nothing was weird, but now every time I see him, my brain screams, "Illegal!" Even though it's technically not. But emotionally, spiritually, existentially, I feel like I should be dropping him off at soccer practice, not flirting over Slack. So now I've been avoiding eye contact like he's the sun and I'm a vampire. A bit like Bella and Edward. And I'm assuming you don't sparkle. And I'm spiraling about whether it's just a dumb crush or an early sign of a midlife crisis. You can't help that you find him cute. It's okay. From now on, you have to think of him like a beautiful painting. You can look at the painting, you can appreciate the beauty of the painting, the artistry of the composition, but you cannot shag the painting. That's why I'm not allowed in the Louvre anymore. And the fifth and final story is TIFU by getting food poisoning twice within a week, by Marty McBrowntown. I'm typing this, and I'm still recovering a week since these symptoms started. Last week, I was getting ready to go on my wife's work trip to help her with some tasks to take off her plate. It was a busy day, so I just grabbed something quick out of the freezer. It was a Trader Joe's chicken shawarma bowl. I gobbled that stuff up. Soon after, I was not feeling the best, as my stomach was experiencing symptoms that almost made me want to vomit. Vomiting happened when I woke up the next morning in cold body sweats and gunned for the bathroom to puke my brains out. Cue flashback to a couple of weeks prior to this shawarma bowl moment. There was a morning I woke up and noticed the freezer door was left open overnight. I made the nervous decision to close the door and hope that the food was okay without really checking if it was spoiled. Okay, now fast forward back to this trip I'm on. We ended up postponing the flight to the evening in hopes that I would feel better with rest and medicine, and I ended up getting to a state of feeling pretty okay. And then when we arrived, I would spend the time needed to finish resting and recovering. Well, a quick recovery ended up being the case. After a day, I was better, all except for my stomach wasn't feeling the best, and my appetite was little to none for the next days thereafter. I couldn't figure out exactly what was wrong. I will say my beehole was pretty raw from all the runs to the toilet on that day, though. So I was only supposed to be helping my wife on her trip for a certain period of time, and I ended up flying home halfway into her trip because my help was used and no longer needed. I get home after a long day of traveling and grab a pint of ice cream from the freezer to eat. I only eat about a quarter of the pint before I notice the taste is off, and it tastes a little sour. It all hit me at once, and then I stared at the ice cream and realized I might have made myself sick again. Lo and behold, I have gotten to know my toilet so much more intimately in the past 24 hours since eating that ice cream, because it definitely made me sick. I have since thrown out all items in the freezer, in hopes that this is the culprit. It's either this or something more morbid. Good advice if you think you have accidentally eaten something that's off cranberry juice and bananas, help a bit in the recovery. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. Before you go, if you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by signing up for my Patreon page. That gets you early access to all the videos at once on Monday for a minimum of $1 or more if you'd like to support more. It's all appreciated. There's also a link to my merchandise store on Teespring in the description down there, as well as some other social media links. I think that's it. No shoutouts or anything today. So before we go, let's have Hellfreezer's question of the day. What is something that people tell you as it is an objective fact? You know it's true, but there's always that little part in your brain that goes, not true. No. For me, it's whenever people tell me that white chocolate is not chocolate, because white chocolate is chocolate. That's it. I'm not going to argue with you. I know what you're saying. I understand the science, but it's chocolate. Let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, we'll take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one came from Embarrassing Stories 129, and as I was watching back to see what the question of the day was in that, it was, do you have a favourite kind of juice? Mine was cloudy innocent apple juice. Because I want to make sure the apples that suffer for my thirst are pure. I realised as I was editing that the audio goes weird toward the end. I've made a cut somewhere and I've not lined something up, because it's fine right up until just partway near the end of the outro. Then it's completely, it's not even like it's out of sync, it's like it's coming from a different part of the video. That's annoying, but it's too late to fix it. Anyway, today's answer comes from Emerald Angel. Cranberry apple juice is my go-to. I've had cran apple, it's quite nice. I'll also buy cranberry mango whenever it's available. I am quite fond of cranberry too. Let's say cranberry and blueberry. Ocean Spray that's my favourite cranberry juice. I tend to not buy unless it's Ocean Spray. That is, the cranberry and blueberry is really nice. It goes down well. But I thought, just cranberry juice is nice and it's good for me. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. Thank you very much for your answer. So until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye-bye.